Well, one day at a train station, there's a fabulous letter in your book. You ran into another lover of American music. His name was Mick Jagger. He's carrying a couple of records. Chuck Berry, I believe, maybe Muddy Waters.
Was.
Talk about that meeting and what it meant for you, even at the time.
At the time, I had a certain recognition suddenly between Mick and myself in that railway carriage. What a few years had done, and that something had brought us to a point of burning interest, which was basically the blues, and rock and roll thrown in, because it's very hard to pull those two apart. You can't take the blues out of any American music. It's there. I think it was kind of a shock, and suddenly that we were both into this music at the same time. The fact that we should just happen to meet again out of nowhere became... Also, I wanted to steal the records if I could get away with it. And so from there on, it went on, I said, oh, where did you get those records? And he said, Chicago. And so we started from there, and I've been trying to steal his records ever since.
In times that I've interviewed, people like Willie Dixon or, John Lee Hooker, they were astonished that young white guys and women in England knew their music. They were so used to essentially being completely unknown, to the vast majority of white people here. I was wondering what you heard in that music. What was it that was there that spoke to you so powerfully, even though, culturally, your circumstances were so different?
I think there's the force, the drive, and this other way of looking at music. I mean, suddenly you're not listening to I'm a pink toothbrush or a blue toothbrush. I mean, these guys are singing about life. And,
to coin a phrase.
Yeah. And George, that was a heavy-duty lift of where music could affect people and the power of it. And I think that those guys, to us, sort of opened, the scales fell, and suddenly you knew exactly what it is you wanted to do. And also the joy of being able to translate that back into America and back to those guys. A sort of circle happened. Why English guys suddenly need to teach Americans about the blues. Now, that's a kind of something I've never been able to figure out. But anyway, it grabbed us, and all we wanted to do was to grab other people with it, and to be able to sort of meet Muddy, John Lee Hooker. My first tour was Bo Diddley, and just to be able to exchange ideas about music and the power that it actually can have over people, used correctly.
Of course, only as prescribed. If you could talk about, say, meeting some of those guys, what were your impressions of those? Everyone, I mean, the first time I met you, I mean, it was amazing to me, being such a fan. And, meeting your heroes can be a tricky business sometimes. I wonder if you could talk about the first time you met Bo Diddley or Muddy Waters or John Lee Hooker.
I think what struck me about all of those guys was their incredible humility and their incredible, they were gentlemen. I mean, these comes from pretty tough guys, I mean, but in their way that they explained themselves to you and the way they took you into their hearts, it was almost like long lost brothers, and it's a feeling I've never forgotten. And I have woken up in Howling Wolf's house once or twice, which is a trip in itself. But,
Well, their music also, I mean, one of the most compelling sections of the many compelling sections in the book your descriptions of you and Mick and Brian Jones, and, in this little apartment, just kind of studying this music and trying to, to see how you can get inside it and convey it. And, can you talk about the, the kind of enthusiasm that you guys felt at that time about each other and about the possibility and about what the music was?
I think we were slightly amazed that we actually found each other and that we could actually sit around and listen to these guys, Jimmy Reed, as I go through the whole litany of Elmore James, and actually begin to figure out, it's not so much just the musicality of it, it's got to do with being able to express it, to be able to put it over, in other words, and to convey ideas, and especially to convey feeling. And I've never forgotten what I learned from those guys. And when we started, we were so idealistic, it was ridiculous. All we wanted to do was to turn other people on to those guys. That was the name of the game. It didn't matter. Money, forget about it. It was just this idealistic sense of everybody should hear this music, and since they're not going to hear the real guys, we'll do second best, and that was our kind of feeling on it. But it was evangelical almost.
I wonder, the one thing that always seemed to me to distinguish the Rolling Stones from from many other bands, obviously, is performance. That it always seemed to be such an essential aspect, of what the Stones were about. And I wonder if you could just talk about that. The moment that you realized, like, that on stage, this band was going to be able to do something that maybe no one else really had been able to do.
There's an aspect about going on stage that it's always exciting because you don't know what's going to happen next, and you only get one take. This is not like making records or anything. It's, once you're on, it's full steam ahead. From my point of view, I'm watching Mick's ass. I'm trying to cover every move.
Give you a hand hold, Mike. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Great. Yes, well, anyway, I'm covering Mick's ass. But that's the way, from my point of view on stage, and trying to keep the whole band together, is I have to make sure that he's supported wherever he goes in the room, whatever he does. So that he feels totally confident that no matter what he does, that the band will be there, even if it means switching beats and rhythms, and as long as he's feeling comfortable. That was the whole point, like a safety net in a way. But at the same time, when things are going well, you want to just prod it a little bit and get a little more out. Come on. It all depends on the circumstances. It depends on the weather and things like that, which you can't have any control over. But with Mick, I had a minimal amount of control in that at least he'd know that I'm there behind him, leading the way.
You talk in the book about sort of lead singer syndrome, and the relationship of the lead singer to a band. Clearly, the story of you and Mick is an old, complex story. But, if you could just describe that process of, that relationship between, the guy up front singing the songs, the band behind him, and kind of how that's worked, for you and Mick, for the Rolling Stones.
It's a strange balance of things, but as I say, for a lead singer, for the front man, so to speak, it's important that he feels like totally confident in that, you know, that he has a band behind him that's not going to fall apart if he tries anything. Be ludicrous if you like, Mick. You know, we'll be there. You know. At the same time, the band might not feel the same way about the lead singer some days. You know? But it's all tossed up in the air, and every gig is different. This is why I never got bored doing this stuff, because take the Stones on stage, 1963 or now, it's still that same sense of adventure, of you know, things, and also you want things to, you don't want everything to be rote. That's the antithesis of rock and roll. So yeah, we can rock, and occasionally we do roll. And that's when I like it.
One of the things in people's responses to the book, one of the things that's really been striking is people's response to the way that you write about, you know, the various women in your life. Someone like Ronnie Spector, or Anita Pallenberg, of course, and you know, your wife Patty now, and you know, even women that you knew more casually. I mean, people are surprised. I mean, that a kind of toughness in your image, but a kind of you know, generosity and sweetness in terms of a lot of what you have to say about, you know, all of those people.
I found it very futile to say anything bad about women. You know? It just doesn't swing. I love them dearly, but then if I expanded on it, then we'd be here all night. Yeah, I'd like to leave women just there. You know, I could swing with them. I love them dearly, and I'm already going on too much.
You know, you've talked about, you know, songwriting a little bit. You know, clearly, you know, you and Mick were locked in a kitchen to write your first song, and you know, since then, obviously, you know, it's been a long time since then. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, you know, that process, both, you know, writing songs with Mick, writing songs with someone like Steve Jordan, you know, writing songs yourself.
Well, sometimes with Mick, you know, I keep looking around for a new kitchen. Let's try that again. And I've always done everything. I've never really written by myself. I've never really liked to do anything by myself, except sleep. Everything else I've done is a joy of collaboration, of bouncing off of somebody else's ideas. And the same with the guitar playing with the Stones. I mean, virtuoso I'm not, and I never intended to be and wanted to be, but I'm very interested in playing something off against the other guy and seeing what comes back. And as Ronnie Wood and I call it, the ancient form of weaving. It's you can't tell where the needle went in or where it came out, you know, but it's a different thread. That's what makes it fun to me, and that's what turns me on. Is the collaboration between musicians and between guys that, you know, writing. I couldn't do it in a vacuum, mind you, not that I've been in one.
I mean, in terms of the other, you know, musicians in the band, you know, going back and listening to a lot of the early Stone stuff, it seems to me more and more what I hear in those records is the importance of Charlie Watts. And I wonder if, you know, you could talk about him, you know, just as a player and as a person, and, you know, and his significance for you.
Charlie, yes, I could say so much about Charlie. Really the solidest drummer that I have ever worked with. Probably because we've worked together for so long that we can almost second guess what's going to happen, and sometimes even try and outguess ourselves just for the fun of it, and I usually screw up. But I mean, Charlie's a gentleman. I don't know how he does it, quite honestly. You know, I mean, he takes everything so smooth. Sometimes I can get mad and stuff. But I've never seen Charlie, or only once, ever show any temper or anything. He's an incredible calming influence in the band. The central point between Mick and myself that can both make us feel kind of stupid at times. Come on, guys, you know what I mean? And, to me, it's just a sheer privilege to work with Charlie Watts, and probably the big blessing in the band.
You know, I'm sure. Absolutely. I'm sure the meaning of you know, what the Rolling Stones represent has kind of evolved for you over time. You know, and you know, after you did get back together in the late '80s and started touring again. I mean, it just seems like things got bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, and in a way, maybe even in a way that never even was possible before. You know, at this stage, you know, what do the Rolling Stones you know, kind of signify to you? I mean, do you still think of yourself as, you know, as that being your primary identity?
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, after all of these years, it'd be very difficult to separate myself from the Stones in any coherent form. You know, when I say I usually mean we. You work with a bunch of guys that hard and that long. I mean, I really find it hard to express this, except to say, hey, ask Duke Ellington, ask Count Basie how it's like to keep a band together for that long, you know, and to still get off on it. And Ray Charles too, old lad, you know, these cats. I mean, they're running big bands, still manage to keep a vital thing going throughout all of those years. And there's something to it that you don't want to let go, you know. You just say, let me see how far this band will go. Go on, you know, drop.
What's the trick?
Not dropping.